The first time I saw the map, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't the design. Ancient star charts always had this eerie, mathematical beauty to them. It was something else. Something missing. Like staring at a puzzle where the last piece isn't just gone, it's been ripped out on purpose. I was stationed on the Aegis Drift, a rusted-out research vessel parked on the far side of the Orion Void. Technically, we were there to survey deep space radiation patterns, but in reality, it was exile. The Council didn't know what to do with a soldier like me after the Yarrow siege. One too many broken protocols. One too many bodies. They didn't like men like me in uniform anymore. Men who fought to win instead of negotiate. So they slapped a data analyst badge on me and shoved me into the darkest corner of the galaxy. That's where I found it. Or, more accurately, where it found me. The map came in through an old subspace relay. No sender, no timestamp. Just a cold, quiet message tucked into an encrypted archive like a whisper from a ghost. It took me 2 weeks to crack the file open. When it finally displayed, I didn't recognize the star patterns at first. Some of them didn't even exist anymore. Others had shifted, evolved, or collapsed millennia ago. This thing was old, older than the Galactic Charter, older than any known civilization still breathing today. And yet, right there at the center, at the convergence of 10 major trade lanes, gravitational arcs, and energy lines, was a blank space, coordinates marked, labeled, measured, but no star, no planet, no data, just a void, a missing world. I zoomed in, recalibrated, thought maybe it was an error, but there were annotations, symbols in a dead dialect from before the First Council. One word repeated 3 times, each written in a different language. Erased. And that's when the paranoia kicked in. Because that blank spot, the one the map said had been wiped out, that spot matched exactly where Earth used to be. Only, Earth hadn't been destroyed. I was born there. Hell, most of us were. It was still listed in the modern nav charts, sitting in the Sol system, spinning just fine. But this map didn't lie. It didn't forget. It had been edited, intentionally, deliberately. Someone, or something, had gone to unthinkable lengths to remove Earth from the oldest record of the known galaxy. And worse, this wasn't the only version. I ran a stealth scan against over 6,000 legacy charts stored across Council servers. Earth was missing from over 80% of them, like we were never meant to exist, or like someone wished we hadn't. I brought it to my supervisor. A nervous little drone of a man who only spoke when spoken to, and never made eye contact. He looked at the map, then looked at me like I'd just coughed up a confession of treason. "Delete it," he said, almost whispering. "You didn't see this." "I didn't see this." "What do you mean, delete it?" He leaned in close. "I've seen what happens when people ask questions about the blank. Ships go missing, files vanish, careers end, lives too." He walked away like nothing happened. That night, someone tried to erase the map from my terminal. Too late. I'd already copied it to a personal core drive, hardwired into my neural implant, locked behind 4 layers of old Terran encryption that no off-world AI could break. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not with the thought rattling around in my skull like a live round in a faulty chamber. Why erase Earth? What the hell were they afraid of? And more importantly, who was they? I didn't file a report. I didn't go to the Council. I didn't ask questions out loud, because I knew what that kind of curiosity cost. Instead, I sat in my dim, low-oxygen bunk, staring at the map every night like it would start talking. The more I studied it, the more it started to feel like a warning. The symbols, the coordinates, the missing planet, it wasn't just erased, it was condemned. I kept running simulations, old gravimetric overlays, ancient hyperspace lane reconstructions, and no matter how far back I dialed the galactic clock, Everything should have revolved around that missing point. Trade, energy flow, gravitational current. It was all meant to move through Earth. But in this map, the whole galaxy bent around a void. Like something so dangerous, so unacceptable, had to be cut out like a cancer. And still, Earth was there, physically, orbiting Sool, breathing, buzzing, full of over 10 billion people completely unaware that most of the galaxy didn't acknowledge they even existed. That scared me more than any weapon ever had. I tried reaching out to a few trusted names from my military days, vets who'd seen behind the curtain before. Most ignored the message. One replied with just 2 words, "Forget it." And one got killed the same night I pinged him. He was found floating in an oxygen scrub tank on his own ship. The file called it a maintenance accident. Bullshit. No one drowns in their own air system unless someone makes sure they do. I stopped contacting people after that. I started preparing instead. My ship clearance wasn't high, but my rank, what was left of it, still got me a beat-up long-range scout shuttle with a functioning FTL drive. I submitted a requisition for independent deep field analysis, faked the coordinates, routed a bogus radiation survey, and launched under the nose of the command staff while they were busy debating fuel rations and food synth cycles. The coordinates from the map led me through dead space. Real dead space. No stars, no systems, just the cold, lightless vacuum that even pirates avoided, the kind of space where no one can hear you vanish. I drifted for 5 days. Alone. Quiet. Engines cold. Power routed only to navigation and life support. If someone was watching, they'd think I was dead or lost. Both were fine by me. I reached the coordinates at 300 ship time. There was nothing there. No planet, no debris, not even heat signatures. Just silence. But my gut said otherwise. I engaged low-frequency scans. Nothing. Then I switched to something older. Terran sonar mapping. A tech centuries outdated, ignored by modern ships. And that's when I felt it. Not saw. Felt. The return echo. The vibration through the hull. There was something there. Something massive. Something not reflecting light or heat, but still pushing back on every signal like a ghost under a frozen lake. Cloaking on this scale wasn't theoretical. It was impossible. But the impossible was humming quietly beneath me like a buried leviathan. Then the screen blinked. A single message appeared. Not a voice, not a face, just text, old Earth basic. "You should not be here." I didn't move. Another line followed. "Turn back." I tried to send a ping, a response, anything. The system crashed instantly. Total blackout. Lights, sensors, propulsion, gone in one flick of a switch I didn't control. I was dead in space. Then, slowly, the nav console came back online. But it didn't show stars. It showed history, a visual flood of Earth's past. Not just the clean version taught in council schools, not the propaganda, the real history, wars, revolutions, atrocities, blood. We weren't a peaceful race. We didn't rise through science and unity. We fought our way forward. We clawed through centuries of death and greed and madness. And yet, we endured. And then the screen shifted. It showed alien worlds, other species, civilizations that had risen and fallen without ever needing war, without ever creating a gun or a soldier. Peaceful, evolved. And still, they died. One by one. Starved, conquered, assimilated, forgotten. But Earth, we didn't die. We adapted, we survived. That was the difference. And maybe that's why we were erased. Because we didn't fit. Because humanity wasn't born to play nice. We weren't sculpted by genetic perfection or divine balance. We were a species born in fire and sharpened by suffering. We made tools out of bones and built weapons out of necessity. We looked at the stars not for answers, but for escape. Maybe they saw that. Maybe that's why they buried us. Because what scared them wasn't what we did. It was what we might do. The screen went black. And then, one final line appeared. You were the experiment. You weren't supposed to survive. I sat, frozen, staring at those words like they were my own death sentence. The ship powered back on slowly. Engines flickered, lights hummed, everything returned to normal. But I wasn't normal anymore. Whatever force had spoken, or shown me, whatever was hidden here, it didn't kill me. Which meant one of two things. Either it wanted me to spread the message, or it knew no one would believe me anyway. I flew back to the drift. Quiet. Calculated. Wrote a fake report, pretended like nothing had happened. But in my head, I kept seeing the map, the void, the missing world, Earth, and the truth that burned behind it all. Humanity wasn't forgotten. We were erased, because they couldn't kill us. There's a kind of silence that follows revelation, not peace, not relief, just silence, like the world's holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll break. When I returned to the Aegis Drift, I didn't talk, didn't breathe a word of what I saw. The techs ran their standard docking protocols, asked the usual bullshit questions. Radiation exposure? Fuel stability? AI response? But I was already 3 layers deep in my own head. They didn't know I'd stood above the ghost of Earth. Didn't know I'd been spoken to, judged, by something not entirely human, and definitely not mechanical. They didn't know our planet had been erased from history not because we were irrelevant, but because we weren't supposed to exist at all. I should have reported something, anything, to explain my 5-day detour. Instead, I handed in a pile of fake radiation readings and atmospheric scans. The supervisors didn't look too hard. No one cared. Out here on the edge of the galaxy, everyone was just killing time until they either got transferred or died of boredom. But one man did notice. His name was Commander Rhett, the kind of soldier they used to make before the council got soft. Scarred. Lean. Eyes like a man who'd seen the core of a plasma grenade explode from 10 feet away and lived to tell it. He didn't trust easy. That made 2 of us. He cornered me outside the mess hall 2 days after I got back. "You're walking like you've seen a ghost," he said without looking at me. I didn't answer. He chewed slowly, then added, "Problem is, out here in the drift, the only ghosts are in your head. Unless you went digging in the dark. Did you?" Still, I said nothing. Then he turned to face me. His voice dropped. "Let me guess, you found it." That froze me. "I don't know what you're talking about." He chuckled, low and dry. "You do. You just don't know how deep it goes." I leaned in. "You've seen the map?" He nodded. 30 years ago. Different coordinates. Same missing piece. Same message. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I enjoy breathing." Fair enough. We walked in silence for a moment, out past the perimeter, into the black corridors of Deck 12. No cameras, no ears. He spoke first. "You think you found something new? You didn't. What you found, it's old. Older than Earth. Older than the Council. Maybe older than life itself. I saw it. The void. I was right above it." Rhett's jaw tensed. "Then you saw what they wanted you to see. Nothing more." "You think I'm being played?" He shook his head. "I think you're being warned." I told him what the message said. About the experiment. About how we weren't supposed to survive. His eyes went flat. "They've changed it." "What?" "The message. Back then it didn't say anything about experiments. It said one thing, 'You are contamination.'" That hit like a slug to the chest. "What the hell does that mean?" Rhett leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Theories vary. Some say we were a lab test gone wrong, a rogue gene pool created by some ancient race who lost control of us. Others say we were never meant to exist in this galaxy at all, that we're some kind of dimensional spillover. A glitch. And you? I think we scare the shit out of them. He looked me in the eye. We build weapons faster than anyone. We reproduce faster. Fight harder. We don't unify, we conquer. And every time someone tries to contain us, we push back. Not with grace, not with diplomacy, with fire and steel. I thought of Earth, still spinning in its orbit, blind to the galactic secret buried just outside its reach. What do we do? I asked. Rhett cracked his neck. We don't do anything. You disappear. You delete everything. You forget. He turned to leave. I grabbed his arm. What if I don't? He didn't answer, just looked at me one last time and said, Then you're already dead. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, because I was angry. They erased us, lied to us, hid us like a sin they didn't want the universe to see, and we accepted it, all of us. Living our little lives under the illusion that Earth was just another backwater planet in a friendly galaxy. But now I knew better. And once you know, there's no going back. So I made a decision. If the universe wanted to pretend we didn't exist, I was going to make sure it could never forget again. I needed proof. Real proof. Not just a map. Not just a ghost transmission. I needed something physical, tangible, something that would scream the truth in every language. That meant going back, but this time not alone. There was one man I could trust, Granger, ex-counsel Intel, retired after getting court-martialed for leaking the Geneva interrogation files. Bitter, brilliant, dangerous, just my kind of bastard. He owed me a favor. I called in that favor. He met me on Vega 9, in a low-orbit bar that smelled like plasma coolant and desperation. When he saw me, he didn't smile. You're supposed to be dead, he said flatly. Working on it, I replied. We sat. No small talk. I need a deep-scan quantum ghost tracker, I said. Something that can detect cloaked mass, even if it's in phase shift. That tech doesn't exist. You built 2 of them. He narrowed his eyes. You're going after the void, aren't you? I didn't answer. He leaned forward, voice low. Whatever's out there, it isn't just hidden. It's protected. Last guy I knew who went looking got erased so clean even his debt collectors forgot his name. I slid a hard drive across the table. That's everything I saw. If I don't make it back, it's yours. He didn't touch it, just stared at me like I was already a ghost. All right, he finally said. You've got balls, stupid ones, but balls. 3 days later, we left Vega 9 in a cloaked interceptor rigged with illegal tech, quantum dampeners, and enough firepower to make a council warbird jealous. Destination: the void. What we found there wasn't a cloaked planet. It wasn't a destroyed world. It was a machine. Massive, old, buried in dark matter and wrapped in some kind of space-time distortion field. A machine in the shape of a world. And at its heart, one blinking light. A beacon, pulsing slowly. Waiting. Granger stared at it through the scope. Jesus, it's not just hiding Earth. No, I said, it's watching it. The beacon pulsed again, faster. A signal. Then the ship's alarms went off. Incoming vessel detected. Unregistered. No drive signature. No approach vector. It just appeared. Granger ran a scan. His face went pale. This isn't possible. What? There's no ship. There's nothing there. And then the message came. Same voice. Same tone. Different words. You were warned. I didn't run, didn't blink. I opened the comms and spoke 3 words. Come and stop me." The transmission ended, and the beacon went dark. The machine vanished, and we were left alone, again staring at empty space. But I wasn't empty anymore. I had coordinates. I had data. And I had a message for the galaxy. Earth isn't gone. We're just getting started. We didn't speak on the way back. Not much to say after you stare down a ghost machine older than civilization itself and watch it blink out of existence like it was never there. Granger flew. I watched. The ship was quiet. No alarms, no intercept warnings. Whatever came to warn us off hadn't fired. It didn't have to. Just showing up was enough. That kind of power. It doesn't bark. It doesn't threaten. It just reminds you you're being watched. Still, I didn't care anymore. Whatever that thing was, whatever civilization built it had blinked first. It disappeared. Not because it was afraid of us, but because we weren't afraid of it. That mattered, because fear was leverage, and leverage was power. And I was done being powerless. Back on Vega 9, Granger dumped the data into 3 separate cores, each one encoded, split, and scattered across multiple encrypted relays. If someone came looking, they'd have to burn half the quadrant to find all the pieces. "You realize this is a death sentence," he said, leaning over the console. "Whatever you think you're doing, you're about to paint a massive target on your back." "I'm not thinking," I said. "I'm acting." He scoffed. "Jesus, you always were a stubborn son of a bitch." "Thanks for noticing." I left him to finish the upload. I had one more stop before I made my move. I was going to Earth. Getting back to Earth wasn't easy. It's a strange thing, being born on a planet that no longer remembers you. My military status was long revoked. I was flagged, monitored, unwelcome, but every system has a back door, especially ones built by humans. Took me 2 weeks, 4 forged clearances, and a favor from an old smuggler I once saved during the Maltec riots. But eventually, I hit moored at a commercial dock just outside New Santiago. A crumbling orbital sprawl hanging above the western seaboard like a rusted halo. From orbit, Earth looked the same. Blue, green, spinning like it always had. But something was off. The ports were quiet. Too quiet. Customs barely looked at me. No scans, no questioning, just a silent nod and a wave through. That's when I knew. They already knew I was here. I took ground transport to the old Terran Archive Tower in Old Chicago. Back before the Council took over education, the archive was the central nerve system for all recorded Earth history, forgotten by most, outdated by every modern database. But if you wanted real history, the kind that couldn't be rewritten, this was the place. It was also where I was born. My father had worked there. Janitor, ex-soldier. Never talked about the wars. Just cleaned floors and told me bedtime stories about Earth being the center of everything. I used to think he was crazy. Now I think he knew more than he let on. The building was sealed when I arrived. No guards, no staff, just rusted bulkheads and a dead console. I bypassed the lock with an old physical override, one of the first tricks Dad ever taught me, and stepped inside. It smelled like memory. Dust, cold metal, faint traces of ancient coolant. I made my way to the sublevels, flashlight in one hand, neural recorder in the other. Everything down there was analog. Paper, microfilm, holograms stored in glass. Untouched by the Council's rewriting systems. That's where I found it. Buried behind a wall panel someone had welded shut and forgotten. An original Stellar Genesis record, printed on carbon thread paper, sealed in a hard case. I broke the seal and unrolled it on a cracked table. The map was beautiful, hand-drawn, annotated in a mix of old Earth script and pre-Council numerics, stars, coordinates, civilizations, trade routes. And at the center, Earth, not missing, not erased, marked, circled. Labeled Prime Seed. My breath caught. Prime Seed, the original world, the blueprint. I took a holoscan and started cataloging the entries. Everything pointed to one truth. Earth wasn't just part of the galaxy. It was the beginning of it. The record dated back over 60,000 years. Before warp drives, before artificial gravity, before the Council, before everything. Someone had known, and someone had made sure we forgot. I was halfway through decoding the second segment when I heard the sound. Footsteps, boots, 4 men, no voices, no echo, trained. I killed the lights and moved. Slipped into an old maintenance shaft and climbed up 2 levels, counting each breath, every heartbeat like it might be my last. They didn't call out, didn't search. They weren't here to capture. They were here to erase, like everything else. I watched from above as one of them lit a thermal charge and placed it on the central data core. No hesitation, just execution. They left 5 minutes later. I waited 10. Then I climbed down and watched the flames eat what was left of our past. I didn't run, not yet. There was one more person I needed to see, my brother. He still lived planet-side, running a small mechanic shop in Sector 9, a slum built on the bones of prefab colonies and rusted exoframes. He'd stayed behind when I left for the military, said someone had to keep the old machines alive. He looked older than I remembered, gray in his beard, one eye replaced with a cheap optic. He didn't hug me when he saw me, didn't even smile, just said, "You brought it back with you, didn't you?" I nodded. He closed the shop door and locked it. "Tell me everything." So I did. The map, the machine, the erased records, the beacon. When I was done, he sat there staring at the floor. "I always thought we were being lied to," he said quietly. "Just didn't think the lie went that deep. What do I do now?" He looked at me. "You burn the whole damn illusion down." "How?" He pulled out a data spike from under the table. "Broadcast, wide spectrum, untraceable, council-grade encryption. I stole it from a crash site during the riots." I took it in my hand. Heavy, sharp, like truth. "Once you activate it," he said, "you've got 10 minutes before every shadow unit within 10 light years is on your ass." More than enough. I left Earth at dawn. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. Some people are born to forget. Others are born to make sure no one ever can. And I had a message to deliver. The broadcast had to go out from somewhere far, somewhere old, a place that still had roots in Terran code. Council systems would shut it down before the first syllable hit open space if I used anything they could trace. That meant going to the Spire. They called it a junk station. Dead orbit. Decommissioned during the Third Rift War. No patrols, no activity, just metal bones rotting in the dark. But Granger had confirmed it still had a functioning comms array, buried beneath enough twisted tech and outdated software that the Council's filters couldn't shut it down fast enough. Perfect. I jumped from a private cruiser, no ID tag, no emissions trail. The Spire came into view like a corpse in a coffin, floating, silent, forgotten. Fitting. It had been part of Earth's first off-world military push. Hundreds of men trained and died there before the Council absorbed the Terran command and restructured the galaxy, which was code for buried everything we used to be. The docking bay was half collapsed. I had to cut my way in, one magnetic clamp at a time. No light inside. Just the groan of old steel under pressure. I moved fast, muscle memory guiding me through the long, dead halls. It took 15 minutes to reach the broadcast control room. Then the real work started. The Council didn't make it easy. They'd disabled most of the interface protocols years ago. I had to hard jack through the neural link using a wrist-ported decryptor Granger had customized. The moment I connected, a wave of static flooded the room. Old data. Encrypted memory fragments, rogue AI echoes, voices of the dead whispering out of the dark. For a second, I hesitated. Then I remembered the flames eating through the archive tower. I remembered the empty space where Earth had been erased. I remembered the machine under the void, watching us, judging us, hiding us like some dirty secret in a universe of artificial peace. I leaned in and activated the spike. "Running payload," I muttered under my breath. The upload started. Data pulsed across the screen. The map, the star void, the classified logs from the drift, the transmission from the beacon, the scan footage of the cloaked machine. Everything. Raw, unfiltered, encrypted in 5 dialects, embedded with visual triggers and DNA-stamped voice logs. This wasn't a whistleblower leak. This was a reckoning. I set it to blast wide. Open bands, smuggler channels, Council Black archives, deep space relay clusters, planetary forums, colony navs, warlord networks, old Terran archives, fringe systems, everything. If it had a signal, it was about to hear the truth. 10% uploaded, then 20, then 30. That's when the alarms screamed. Incoming vessel detected. No name, no signal, no registration. Again. Same as before. They found me faster this time, I muttered, but I didn't stop the upload. I heard them land. Boots on steel. They didn't knock. They breached. A concussive blast ripped the airlock down the hall, echoing through the dead corridors like thunder in a tomb. They were coming fast. No protocol, no hesitation. Kill team. This wasn't about arrest. They wanted to wipe me out the same way they wiped the records, the same way they wiped Earth. Too late. Upload 87%. 1 more minute. I drew my sidearm and sealed the control room with the last bit of power left in the blast doors. First shot came through the steel. Punctured the wall. Missed my head by an inch. I ducked, fired back, aimed to wound, not kill. I didn't want silence. I wanted screams. Proof someone came. 2 of them rushed the door with shielded rigs. I lobbed a pulse mine. Not lethal, just enough to shut down their suits. The blast sent one tumbling. The other screamed, his helmet cracking against the wall. I hit the transmitter. Voice now live. Begin broadcast. I didn't bother with a greeting. I looked into the camera, blood on my sleeve, smoke rising from the console, and a dead man's pistol in my hand. And I said, "My name is not important. But what I've found is, the oldest star map in the galaxy has a world missing. That world is Earth. We've been erased, hidden, buried, labeled an experiment, marked as contamination. And now I know why, because we weren't supposed to survive. And the ones who built this lie, they knew we would rise. They watched us fight, bleed, kill, rebuild. They watched us crawl out of the dirt and build machines that burn suns, and they got scared. So they tried to wipe us out with silence. But silence ends today. You can deny a voice, you can erase a name, but you can't stop truth from bleeding. Earth lives, and we remember. The upload hit 100%. The spike flashed green. Sent. The next blast blew the control panel apart. I hit the floor as fire and sparks filled the room. My ears rang, blood dripping from my temple. The door was gone. They stood in the smoke. Black armor, no insignia, no emotion. The lead man raised his weapon. I raised my eyes, smiled. "You're too late." He didn't speak, just pulled the trigger. Pain didn't come. Not right away. Shock buys you a few seconds of false hope, like maybe you're still alive, still walking away. But I wasn't. I dropped hard, My body screamed. Blood pooled. I saw boots pass by. Someone leaned down. A voice, distorted, synthetic, whispered, "No one will remember your name." I laughed, even as my lungs filled, even as the cold crept in. I laughed because it wasn't about me. It was about them, the people who would hear it, the ones who would ask questions, the ones who would remember. The broadcast hit 12 systems within the first 30 seconds. Within 2 minutes, it hit 75 more. By the end of the hour, half the galaxy had seen it. The Council scrambled, spun it as a hoax. A rogue op, a terrorist lie, but the data matched too many dead records. The voice logs were too real. The image of the map, the beacon, the void, too familiar to be fake. And the people? The people were done being silent. Back on Earth, my brother saw the footage, played it on a loop in the mechanic shop. Crowds gathered, old soldiers, exiles, students, journalists, hackers. They watched the truth, wide-eyed, fists clenched, and they remembered. They remembered Earth wasn't just a place, it was a statement. That no matter how far the galaxy drifted into order, into clean language and false unity, there would always be one species too wild, too loud, too damned stubborn to be erased. I died on that station. But I didn't disappear. My blood's still in the wires. My voice is still in the signal. And now the galaxy knows. Earth was missing from the map, because it was the only world they couldn't control. They tried to bury the broadcast, tried to erase it, drown it out, replace it with their sterile white noise programming. They dumped propaganda across every comm band, choked the airwaves with official statements, called it a deepfake, a malfunction, a known misinformation virus spreading through unstable sectors. They wheeled out talking heads with soft eyes and safer accents to explain how unstable veterans sometimes create false histories to feel important. But it was too late. The truth was out. And once it was out, it didn't need to be believed. It just needed to be seen, needed to plant doubt, because doubt was the crack, and cracks spread. The Council didn't understand that. They were still playing by rules. Earth never had any. In the deep underground of New Santiago, the streets had started to shift. Quiet at first, then louder. Mechanics, mercenaries, freight haulers, disavowed soldiers, all whispering the same thing. He wasn't lying. My brother, still running his shop, got visits every day, not from the authorities, from men like me. Men who'd seen things, who remembered things. One of them was an old war pilot with a bullet scar across his neck and an Earth tattoo burned into his shoulder. "I saw Earth missing from a nav map 10 years ago," he told my brother. "Thought I was drunk, but it was real." It was erased. Another brought a cracked data chip from the early migration era, maps showing Earth as Origin World 0. A third, he brought something else, a body, wrapped in a gray council drop sheet, no ID tag, no markings, just a man in black armor with no insignia and a neural relay embedded in his spine. One of the cleaners. Someone had found him floating near a dead relay hub 2 systems from Vega 9. Pulse shot through the base of his skull. Not a casualty, a liability. My brother took the chip from the relay. It had partial logs. Council Command had issued a protocol blackout. Orders read, "Eliminate all transmission traces. Engage unauthorized narrative units with final force. Contain Terran memory threads. Reinforce outer colony memory wipe." Reinforce memory wipe. They'd been doing it for years. In the fringe colonies, the ones the Council forgot about unless it needed conscripts, revolt came fast, not organized, not strategic. But violent, emotional, human. A grain freighter from the Saturn Divide painted "We Remember Earth" on its hull and rammed into a council blockade station, taking 900 lives with it. In the Carthon mines, 5,000 workers walked off shift and sealed off access, broadcasting the map on loop across a private comm grid. Council drones opened fire. 100 died. But the signal stayed up. The real storm didn't start until Bastion, the central trade moon of the 13th sector, and one of the most tightly controlled outposts in Council territory. That's where it happened, where the Council blinked. They called it the Memory Rebellion. It started with just 3 words spray-painted on the side of a water silo. We weren't meant. Every person who saw it knew exactly what it meant. They started tagging it across the city, on statues, on walls, on council shuttles. Then, someone hijacked the council's nightly broadcast. Played 30 seconds of my voice, pulled from the original transmission. They erased us because they couldn't kill us. The next day, 10,000 citizens flooded the central square, unarmed, silent, holding signs with one word. Remember. Council Command panicked, sent in armored patrols, gas, pulse rifles. 3,000 civilians were killed in 1 hour. The rest didn't run. They picked up stones, wrenches, explosives, and for the first time in 100 years, Bastion burned. That night, across every system still clinging to freedom, footage of Bastion went viral. Not on council channels. They blocked it within minutes, but in pirate hubs, black market comm rings, fringe terminals, even the back rooms of noble palaces, and in every single clip, every screen, one phrase echoed, "Earth lives." It wasn't just humans reacting anymore. The other species had noticed. Some remembered Earth from trade decades ago. Strange, violent people with unpredictable technology and unmatched tenacity. Others had forgotten Earth entirely, had been taught it never existed. Now they were angry, not just at the Council, but at the lie, at the invasion of memory. Because if the Council could erase Earth, what else had it deleted? What other worlds had been scrubbed? What other truths were lost in the silence? Then came the defections. First, a cargo fleet from the Monary Nebula, captained by a human hybrid who traced her lineage to Terran DNA. She broadcast publicly. My ancestors were called dangerous. Now I know why. Because we carry fire, and we don't put it down. Next came a station AI from the Euraxis chain, a construct who'd been locked into core compliance protocols for 40 years. It broke its code and released the full archive of Earth-related data buried in its secondary logs. Then a council historian, Dr. Sorn Revik, alien, pureblood, and once considered a decorated figure, came forward and announced in a galactic summit, Earth's erasure is the greatest intellectual crime in the history of our civilization. He was arrested within an hour. He died 3 hours after that. But the cracks kept spreading. Systems that once obeyed council law without hesitation began hesitating. Leaders delayed orders. Patrols disobeyed commands. Entire colonies went dark. Earth, the world that was never meant to survive, was becoming a symbol. Not of peace, not of unity, but of resistance, of memory, of the one thing the council couldn't sterilize. Truth soaked in blood. And what of Earth itself? It woke up. Slowly. Ragefully. The old governments couldn't stop the wave. They tried. Locked down news channels. Arrested anyone streaming the broadcast. But the footage bled through. People watched it on old projectors, on hacked implants, on wall graffiti. And then came the funerals. For me. For the others who'd vanished trying to speak the truth. They lit pyres in every sector, said my name like it meant something, carved it into walls, buried it in songs, and I was dead. but not gone, because they remembered now. My brother walked out into the street with nothing but a photo of the map and an old Terran flag. By the time he got to the central square, 10,000 were behind him. None of them armed, none of them afraid. That night, Earth declared independence, not just from the Council, but from forgetting, from silence, from lies. And the Council? They finally understood what they'd done. They hadn't erased Earth. They'd made it unforgettable. The first retaliatory strike didn't come from Earth's military. It came from a farm ship, the Hollow Light, a floating agricultural carrier out of Terra Sector 4. Civilian, underpowered, crewed by 42 unarmed farmers and engineers. No weapons, no shields. And yet, it destroyed a Council enforcement cruiser orbiting Vega Prime. How? It crashed into it, deliberately. The crew transmitted a single sentence before impact. "You erased our history. Now we erase your future." The broadcast was seen by over 600 million across open space, and in those final seconds before both vessels exploded, one thing was clear: Earth wasn't rising through speeches and diplomacy. Earth was rising through sacrifice. The Council responded as expected. Full martial lockdown across the Terran belt, curfews, blackouts, mass detentions. They arrested my brother, along with thousands more, charging them with interstellar instigation. The lie came back in force. They claimed Earth was trying to start a war, called us dangerous, irrational, corrupt, genetic deviants, pulled ancient Terran history out of context, showed clips of wars, of executions, of revolutions, painting the picture that humans were always unstable. They wanted to remind the galaxy why Earth had been removed from the record in the first place. They thought fear would silence us again. They forgot what happens when you corner something that knows how to bleed. On the moon, Karen 6, a Council AI went rogue. Not a malfunction, a decision. It began releasing censored documents from old Terran conflicts, showing Council-backed massacres, black site testing on human colonies, forced sterilization programs meant to reduce Earth's aggression profile. They'd been trying to wipe us out biologically for centuries, quietly, legally. They never expected the AI to remember. But it did. And with each file it released, the fire spread further. A rogue fleet formed in the outer fringe, mostly ex-soldiers, some pirates, even a few bounty hunters. They painted their ships with old Earth colors, deep red and black, and called themselves the Remembered. No leaders, no ranks, just one rule. No one silences us again. They started by hijacking supply ships, then Council patrol routes, then outer ring garrisons. They didn't conquer territory, they disrupted it. They forced the Council to react to every punch, to spread their defenses thin, to chase shadows instead of controlling the center. And while the Council scrambled to contain the outer chaos, Earth prepared. The Old Earth Coalition, once a fractured group of pacifists and faded veterans, reformed under one command. They didn't care about votes. They cared about truth. Their new flag bore the symbol of the missing world on the ancient star map, a black circle where Earth should have been, a symbol of what was stolen, a symbol of what was coming back. They began reactivating old military installations buried under the crust, facilities untouched since the early Terran wars, weapons no one had seen in generations. Prototype gravity torpedoes, atmospheric rippers, and something darker, Project Gatekeeper, a last resort orbital platform hidden in the shadow of Mars. The Council had no idea it still existed. They would soon. One man returned to Earth with knowledge no one expected. Granger. He'd vanished after the broadcast. Gone dark, no comms, no trail. People assumed he was dead. He wasn't. He came back with something worse than evidence. He came back with a prisoner. A living, breathing council envoy. Not human. Tall. Pale. Eyes like glass. Its name was unknown. It didn't speak, not in words. But its neural implants spoke volumes. Granger had sliced into its memory core and pulled out one horrifying truth. Earth hadn't been erased by the Council alone. The Council had help. Something older. Something still watching. The machine beneath the void wasn't Council tech. Wasn't even from this galaxy. It was a containment device. Built by an extinct species from outside the known galactic rim. The Exxari. They hadn't died in war. They hadn't vanished through evolution. They had ended themselves after creating Earth. The broadcast's original warning was clearer now. You weren't supposed to survive. We weren't a species. We were a weapon, designed, engineered, dropped into a young galaxy as a biological chaos test. The Exxari wanted to study what would happen when something with no unifying morality, no shared consciousness, and a taste for conquest was introduced into a peaceful galactic ecosystem. But they underestimated us. Earth didn't spread through infection. We spread through will. We adapted, we bred, we evolved. We survived every test. And when the Exxari realized they couldn't stop what they'd created, they built the void. To isolate us, erase us, contain us like a virus. But the Council found the machine, learned what we were, and instead of destroying us, they made a deal. Let Earth live, so long as Earth stayed forgotten. That truth hit harder than anything before, because it meant this wasn't just about censorship. It was about fear. The entire galaxy, peace, progress, civilization, had been built on the condition that Earth never remembered itself, that we never learned what we were, that we never stood up again, until one man broadcast the truth, until one voice cracked the lie wide open, until we remembered. Back on Earth, Project Gatekeeper came online. It was a relic, massive, ugly, unstable, but inside it was an energy core designed to collapse planetary shields with a single pulse. It had only been tested once, and that test had wiped a moon out of existence. Earth's commanders didn't want to use it, but the Council was moving now. Hard. A fleet of 72 war cruisers jumped into Sol space. No declaration, no diplomacy, just presence. A show of force. They demanded Earth's surrender. Earth didn't respond. Instead, the Remembered struck first. A single stealth ship, painted obsidian, pierced the cruiser line and planted a detonation charge inside the flagship's core. 8,000 Council troops died in 11 seconds. War was no longer a rumor. It was here. The first orbital battle over Earth in 200 years raged for 6 hours. Gatekeeper fired once, just once. The shockwave it created crippled 9 cruisers instantly. The others scattered, limping back to Council space. But Earth didn't celebrate, because in the aftermath, Gatekeeper cracked its own core. It was now unstable. Doomed. But that didn't matter, because Earth had proven the one thing the Council never wanted anyone to believe. We could fight back. Across the stars, species who'd once bowed to Council rule began questioning everything. If Earth was real, what else had they been lied to about? If humanity could survive erasure, what was stopping anyone else from rising? The galaxy wasn't just remembering, it was waking up. And far beyond the rim, in the cold where signals vanish and even light loses hope. Something else stirred. The Exxari weren't gone. Not entirely. And now they were listening. To us, to the chaos, to the sound of Earth rising, and for the first time in eons. They were afraid. They came in silence, not with a fleet, not with fire, with a whisper. From beyond mapped space, past the edge of known stars, through the void where the laws of time and mass begin to rot, the Exxari returned, not as flesh, not as form, but as signal. A frequency embedded in dark energy, bleeding into relay channels, infecting subspace with one repeated phrase: containment failed, reset required. The council collapsed within weeks. Commanders vanished, homeworlds went dark, entire systems shut down their engines and went still, waiting for judgment. Because the Exxari were not gods, but they had designed them. And Earth was their blasphemy. The first planet to be reset was Virelum, a peace hub, council-aligned, known for diplomacy and hybrid programs. The reset didn't come with bombs. It came with absence. One day, Virelum was transmitting broadcasts of calm and neutrality. The next day, it was gone. No debris, no radiation, no light, just a hole in space, like someone had deleted it from creation. And across the stars, the whisper grew louder. Reset required. Earth's leaders, what was left of them, didn't panic. They convened deep beneath the crust, inside the forge, a buried facility thought lost during the old Earth collapse. Representatives from resistant cells, fringe colonies, rogue fleets. And the remembered sat around one rusted steel table and asked one question. If we were made to be chaos, then what do we become now? The answer didn't come from a general or a politician. It came from a child, an orphan from Bastion, 11 years old. Survivors had brought her to Earth after the bombings. She stepped into the war room without permission, looked every adult in the eye, and said, "They want to erase us, again, so we give them a reason to be afraid." Not of chaos. Not of violence, but of something worse. Memory. We would not be a virus. We would not be fire. We would be a story they could never kill, the oldest kind, the kind that outlives its authors. The Exxari signal didn't stop. It only grew, touching more systems, more minds. Some species surrendered immediately, others self-destructed. A few even begged Earth for protection. Funny how fast the monsters become guardians. But Earth didn't build an empire. Didn't claim territory, didn't rule. We warned. And we prepared. The engineers who rebuilt Gatekeeper weren't building another weapon. They were building a mirror. Something that could reflect the Exxari signal back at its source. Using the same ancient quantum pulse architecture embedded in the original containment machine, Earth's scientists weaponized the frequency, not to destroy the Exxari, but to make them remember, to force them to see what they created, us, not as a glitch, not as a mistake, but as survivors. The Exxari didn't send ships. They sent dreams, visions, hallucinations. They infected sleep cycles across half the galaxy, humans and aliens alike waking with bleeding eyes and fractured minds, whispering fragments of a shared nightmare. A cold field, a hollow world, a voice saying, "All must return to silence." They were rewriting reality, trying to overwrite us from the inside out. It worked on thousands, millions, but not on us. Not on the Earthborn. We don't erase easy. We etch our pain into stone. We carve names into walls. We tell stories in the ashes of our dead. And no matter how deep the silence goes, we scream back. When the mirror was complete, Earth activated the relay. The pulse rippled outward, not as destruction, but as memory, the full broadcast, the map, the void, the beacon, my voice, Granger's logs, the death screams of the erased, all of it, blasted into every known system. Every corner of space, including the source of the Exxari signal. And for the first time since creation, the signal stopped. What followed wasn't peace, it was reckoning. The Council's former allies rose from their knees. They stormed Council archives, burned down memory prisons, released billions of suppressed files. Entire races learned who they really were, who they had been, what had been stolen from them. And Earth? We watched. We didn't lead. We reminded. The last monument built wasn't on Earth. It wasn't on any planet. It was built in the heart of the void, at the exact coordinates where Earth had once been erased from the oldest star map. A black satellite, no weapons, no signal, just one inscription etched in 1,000 languages. You tried to forget us. Now you will always remember. Years passed. The galaxy reshaped. There was no new council, no unified rule. But there was understanding. A loose alliance of worlds, forged not through treaties, but through shared memory. And at its core, Earth stood, not as a ruler, not as a destroyer, but as a witness. Proof that you could survive silence, that you could claw your way out of the grave they buried you in. And when they asked for our flag, Earth gave them a circle, just a blank, dark circle, where a world once was missing. As for me, I'm still dead. Officially. But sometimes, if you tune into the wrong frequency, on the wrong planet at the wrong time, you might still hear my voice. Telling the story. Not to be believed, not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. Because that's the one thing the void can't take from you. Your story. And this was ours.